The first thing I remember is the sound. Her hand against my cheek, sharp, wet, echoing off the tiled kitchen walls. Then silence. My daughter-in-law Emily stood there, chest heaving, her fingers still curled like claws. The veins on her neck pulsed. Her lipstick was smudged, her perfume thick and sweet in the air, a scent that suddenly made me sick. "Give me the house keys," she said. Not a question, a demand. I pressed my palm to my face, it was burning. She didn't even flinch. Outside, a lawnmower buzzed faintly in another yard. A child laughed somewhere down the street. Normal life continued, except inside my kitchen, time had cracked open. If you'd asked me a year ago, I would have told you my family was close. Not perfect, never perfect, but steady. My husband passed away 6 years back. After that, my son Daniel became my anchor. He married Emily 2 years later, a bright, quick-talking woman with a laugh that filled the room. She used to bring me flowers every Sunday and call me mom, even before the wedding. I gave them my blessings, my recipes, and later my trust. When Daniel and Emily moved into the guest house on my property, everyone said it was a sweet arrangement. 3 generations on one land, the neighbors said, so much love. And for a while, it really was. The first hairline crack appeared the day I misplaced my jewelry box. I found it 3 days later, tucked behind the linen closet, emptied. My gold bangles, my husband's wedding ring, all gone. When I asked Emily, she smiled too quickly. "Oh, maybe you hid it yourself," she said, waving a manicured hand. "You've been so forgetful lately." The way she said it, forgetful, lingered. Daniel laughed, kissed my forehead, and said I probably just needed more sleep. That night, I lay awake listening to the sound of footsteps outside my door. Soft, hesitant, then gone. I wanted to believe I was imagining things. It's strange how easily we convince ourselves not to see what's right in front of us, especially when it wears a pretty smile. So when Emily began insisting on helping with my papers, I said yes. She came with coffee every morning, cheerful and efficient. "Let me take care of your bills," she said. "You shouldn't worry about all this stuff anymore." She brought her laptop, sat at my dining table, and logged into my accounts while humming softly to herself. The smell of her perfume, something floral with a bite of vanilla, filled the air. I started to associate that scent with surrender. 2 weeks before the slap, she asked a strange question. "Do you ever think about downsizing?" I looked up from the crossword. Why would I do that? "Well," she said, tilting her head, "this house is huge for one person. And old, you could move into something cozier, closer to us." "I already live next to you," I said. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Right, of course." Later that night, I overheard her and Daniel arguing outside. Her voice sharp, low. His pleading. Then a single word carried through the open window, "deed." The air smelled like rain, but underneath it I caught something else. Smoke. The day before everything exploded, she baked me apple pie. She knocked on my door around 4, holding the plate in a towel. "Made this for you, Mom," she said, her smile stretched thin. The crust was perfect, but the taste off, too sweet, almost metallic. "You'll need your strength," she said. "For what?" "Oh, you'll see." She left before I could ask more. That night I dreamed my husband was sitting at the foot of my bed. His hands were cold, his mouth moved, but no sound came out. When I woke, the hallway light was on, and I swear I heard the front door click shut. Morning sunlight poured through the kitchen window, bright and cruel. I was making tea when she burst in, barefoot, eyes wild. "Where are the house keys?" she said. "What?" "The keys, Margaret." "They're where they've always been, on the hook." She snatched them, her movements jerky. "Not those, the spare set, the ones for the safe room." My chest tightened. "Why would you need those?" "Because this house is mine now." I laughed, or tried to, it came out brittle. "What are you talking about?" She stepped closer. "You signed the transfer, remember?" "I signed nothing." She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. "Then what's this?" Inside was a document with my name, my signature, and her handwriting in the witness line. It looked real, too real. "You forged my signature," I whispered. Her smile was a blade. "No one will believe you." The kettle screamed on the stove, shrill and hot. She stepped forward. "Give me the keys, Margaret." "I won't." Her jaw clenched. "You don't get it. Daniel and I have plans. We're going to renovate, sell, move up. This house is holding us back." I shook my head. "This house is your husband's home, my home, it's not for sale." Her voice rose. "You think you can keep controlling him, controlling us?" I never. And that's when it happened. Her hand flashed before I even saw it coming. The slap cracked through the room like lightning. Hot tears stung my eyes, not from pain but from shock. I stared at her, my own daughter-in-law, the girl who once hugged me at Christmas and called me family. She said very calmly, "You'll hand them over, one way or another." Then she turned and walked out, her heels clicking on the floor, click, 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 until the door slammed. I stood there for a long time, my palm pressed to my burning cheek. The kettle had stopped screaming, but the smell of scorched metal lingered. The room felt smaller somehow, the air heavier. When I finally moved, I saw the folder she'd left on the counter. It wasn't just the transfer paper. There were bank statements, insurance forms, a typed letter to my lawyer, unsigned but ready. My hands trembled as I picked it up. The heading read, "Power of Attorney Request." The phone rang. It was Daniel. "Mom, Emily said you had a fall. Are you okay?" I gripped the phone so tightly it hurt. "I'm fine. Why did she tell you that?" He sighed. "She's worried about you. She said you've been confused lately, forgetting things." I closed my eyes. "Daniel, she hit me." He went quiet. "She what?" "She came here, she slapped me, she said she owns this house." He chuckled softly, but it was the wrong kind of laugh. "Mom, please don't start this again. Emily said you've been imagining things." My stomach dropped. "Daniel, listen to me. She forged my name, I have proof." But he was already saying, "Let me talk to her, okay? Just rest. We'll sort it out later." Then the line went dead. I stood there staring at the phone, the kitchen clock ticking too loud. Through the window, I saw Emily in the yard on the phone, packing. Her expression was hard, cold. When she looked up and saw me watching, she smiled. A slow, poisonous smile. I knew then that something much darker was happening. This wasn't about the house anymore. It was about control. And she'd already started convincing everyone that I was losing mine. That night, I locked every door and window. But sleep wouldn't come. Every creak in the house made me flinch. The pipes groaned, a branch scraped the glass. Then, sometime after midnight, I heard a soft metallic sound. The rattle of keys. My keys. I crept to the hallway, barefoot, my heart pounding. The front door handle turned slowly. Someone was trying to get in. I whispered into the dark, "Daniel." No answer. Only the click of the lock turning, smooth, practiced. And when the door opened a crack, I saw her silhouette in the glow from the porch light. "Emily." She was holding something small and shiny in her hand. "Not a key. A phone." She lifted it slightly, the flash of the camera catching my face. "Smile," she whispered. "Let's show everyone how unstable you really are." And in that moment, I understood her plan. She wasn't just trying to take my house. She was trying to take my mind. But what she didn't know was that I'd already started recording her too. The night I started recording Emily, I didn't even plan it. It was instinct, the kind that comes when you've spent your life pretending not to see danger until it's staring you down. I hid a small voice recorder inside the sugar tin, cheap plastic bought years ago to remember my grocery list. Now it had a new purpose. That red blinking light became my only ally. But before I tell you what I caught her saying, I have to tell you how we got here, how a girl I once called daughter turned into the woman who stood in my kitchen and slapped me across the face. The first time I met Emily, she was wearing a yellow dress and carrying a box of donuts. Daniel brought her over one Saturday morning, grinning like a boy again. "Mom, this is Emily," he said. "She makes me happy." She smiled wide, her lipstick a little too red. "You must be Margaret, I've heard so much about you." Her handshake was firm, almost rehearsed. She smelled like something expensive, jasmine and powder. And she looked around my living room like she was memorizing it. That day, she called me Mom before dessert. I liked her then. She was attentive, funny, eager to please. When Daniel stepped out to take a work call, she leaned closer and whispered, "You've raised such a good man. Don't worry, I'll take care of him." It sounded sweet at the time. But now I realize what she meant was, "I'll take him away." After they got engaged, she came over almost every day. "Let me help you with the wedding plans," she said. "I have an eye for details." Soon, it wasn't just the wedding plans. It was everything, the guest list, the decorations, even what dress I should wear. When I tried to give an opinion, she'd smile and say, "Oh, Margaret, you're adorable, but let me handle it." Adorable, like I was a child. I laughed it off then. That's what you do with people you love, you ignore the little cuts because they don't bleed right away. After the wedding, Daniel and Emily moved into an apartment downtown. They came every Sunday for dinner. She always brought wine, expensive bottles I couldn't pronounce, and little criticisms wrapped in compliments. This roast is divine, she'd say, but you really should let me teach you how to use Himalayan salt. It's better for the heart. Or your living room has such character. I'd love to redecorate it someday. Daniel never noticed. He'd just smile, refill her glass, and talk about work. But I noticed, especially the way she'd glance around the house when she thought I wasn't looking. One rainy afternoon, maybe 6 months after their wedding, Emily called me out of the blue. Can I come over? She asked. It's important. When she arrived, she was crying big, theatrical tears that didn't quite match her calm voice. Daniel and I had a fight, she said, wiping her cheeks. He doesn't understand how hard it is to feel left out. Left out of what? I asked. Of you. She looked at me then, eyes wide, pupils blown. You're always first in his heart, Margaret. Do you know how that feels, to marry a man who's still attached to his mother? Her tone made me shiver. I said quietly, he loves us both. She smiled thinly, does he? Then she stood, straightened her coat, and said, I'll make sure he learns where his loyalty belongs. From that day, things changed. Daniel visited less, calls came shorter. When I did see him, he seemed tired, distracted. I'd ask if everything was okay. He'd say, yeah, Mom, just work. But his eyes said something else. And every time Emily was with him, she'd answer my questions for him. Always smiling. Always steering the conversation. The house became quieter. I started leaving lights on just to make it feel less empty. Some nights I'd make 2 cups of tea out of habit and end up pouring one down the sink. Then one morning, Daniel showed up with papers. Emily found a great opportunity, he said. A small business loan, but the bank needs proof of assets. I frowned. What kind of proofs? He hesitated. We thought maybe you could list the house temporarily. I stared at him. List it. Just on paper, he said quickly. To show collateral, nothing changes legally, it's just for a few months. I felt my chest tighten. Daniel, this house is all I have. I know, he said softly, and I'd never risk that, I promise. Emily was standing in the doorway behind him, silent. Her hand rested lightly on his shoulder, her nails painted blood red. She smiled when she caught me looking. I didn't sign anything that day. But a week later, Daniel came again. Mom, did you misplace your checkbook? No, why? He sighed. Because there was a payment from your account to the loan company. Emily said you gave permission. My heart dropped. I didn't. He frowned. Mom, please don't start. She wouldn't lie. That was the first time I realized I was losing him, inch by inch. There's one thing I've never told anyone until now. A year before Emily married Daniel, my husband's lawyer helped me set up a private savings fund, meant for emergencies or for Daniel when I was gone. The documents were hidden in my sewing chest, under old spools of thread. I hadn't touched them in years. Until one afternoon, when I found the lid slightly open. Inside, the papers were gone. I confronted Daniel about it. He looked confused. Mom, I don't even know what you're talking about. Then Emily stepped in, arms crossed. Maybe you misplaced them, things get lost in old houses. I know what I saw, I said. Her eyes narrowed. Careful, Margaret, that kind of paranoia makes people worry about you. That word again, paranoia. She said it like a warning. From then on, she started keeping a notebook whenever she visited. She'd jot things down, times, dates, things I said. When I asked, she smiled, just helping you stay organized. But I saw the headings once when she left it open. Behavior log. Mood swings. Forgetfulness mild to moderate. She was building a case, a version of me that didn't exist. The object that kept coming back, the one thing that tied it all together, was my husband's old keychain. Silver, worn smooth from years of use. He used to call it his anchor, said as long as he had those keys, he could always find his way home. After he passed, I kept them on my nightstand. I liked the sound, the soft jingle when I turned off the lamp. But one morning, the keys were gone. I found them later in Emily's purse. When I asked why, she laughed. Oh, I thought they were Daniel's, sorry. She said it so easily, like it was nothing. But that was when I started to suspect this wasn't just greed. It was obsession. The day before the slap, before she showed up with that forged deed, she came to me with a cup of tea. She sat at my kitchen table, perfectly composed. You know, she said, Daniel been under a lot of pressure lately. I'm worried about him. I nodded, work stress. She smiled faintly, among other things. Then she looked me straight in the eye. If something happened to you, we'd take good care of the house. You can trust me with that. Her words slid into my ears like oil. If something happened to you. It wasn't a threat yet, but it was close enough to smell like one. The tea went cold between us. That night, I called Daniel again. He didn't answer, but a few minutes later, a text came through. Mom, stop worrying. Emily says you're overthinking things again. Overthinking, forgetful, paranoid. 3 words that can erase a lifetime of truth. And that's how she did it. Not by stealing in the dark, but by painting me as the kind of woman no one would believe. Every word, every gesture, every sugary smile, all of it had been part of the plan. And now she had everything she needed. Access to my accounts, my keys, and my son's trust. But what she didn't know, not yet, was that she'd left one thing behind. One mistake. A single voice message she forgot to delete. And in it, she said something that would change everything. Because the person she was really plotting with was Daniel. I didn't sleep that night. The red light on the recorder blinked at me from across the room like a heartbeat. I couldn't stop thinking about her voice, calm, sure, poisonous. And that message. She whispered something before hanging up, a name. But I hadn't recognized it. So at dawn, I made coffee, my hands shaking, and pressed play again. Static, then her laugh. Yes, it's almost done, she said. By next week, she'll either sign it or we'll find a way. Then a pause. And a man's voice, good, just make sure Daniel doesn't suspect. Not Daniel, someone else. The voice was deep, controlled, familiar but faint. Trust me, Emily said. He believes everything I tell him. Once the paper's clear, we'll split the proceeds. Split the proceeds. She wasn't doing this for Daniel. She was doing it with someone else. I played that part again and again until my hands went numb from holding the recorder. A man, a plan, my house. But who? I went through the names in my head, friends, coworkers, neighbors. Then it hit me. Mark. Daniel's best friend since childhood, his old business partner. Mark had been helping them with their renovation investments. He was around the house often, fixing things, carrying files, smiling that polite, practiced smile. Last month, he'd even told me, this property's a gold mine, Mrs. Dawson, you could make a fortune selling. At the time, I thought he was just being friendly. Now, I wasn't so sure. That afternoon, Daniel came by to check on me. He looked tired, distracted, a phone glued to his hand. Emily said you've been anxious again, he said, scanning the kitchen. What's this about recording things? My heart skipped, recording. He gestured toward the counter. The sugar tin was gone. She told me you've been acting paranoid, he said softly. You can tell me if something's wrong. The sweetness in his tone hurt worse than anger. Daniel, I said carefully, do you trust me? He hesitated, of course. Then listen, Emily's lying. She's been taking money and there's someone helping her. He sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Mom. I have proof. He looked up, what proof? I reached for the recorder. Gone. Panic rose in my throat. It was right here, I whispered. I had it. Daniel frowned. Mom, please. No, listen, she came in last night, I heard her. Mom, his tone shifted. Emily said you've been confusing dreams with real life. You called her at midnight, said she was in the house. That's because she was. He stepped closer, voice low. Stop this, you're making it worse. I wanted to scream, to shake him. But all I could do was whisper, she's manipulating you, Daniel. He took a step back. I think you need help. After he left, I sat on the floor, staring at the empty spot on the counter where the sugar tin used to be. The silence in the house was unbearable. That night I tore the place apart, drawers, closets, under the sink. Nothing. When I finally checked the porch, I found it, the tin crushed flat like someone had stepped on it. The recorder was missing. All that remained was a single scrap of paper wedged beneath the doorframe. A torn envelope. With my name typed neatly across the front, Mrs. Margaret Dawson. No return address. Inside, one line printed in block letters. Stop digging or you'll lose more than your house. The next morning, the doorbell rang. I froze. Through the window, I saw Mark standing on the porch, holding a folder and smiling like a salesman. "Morning, Mrs. D," he said when I opened the door. "Just need a quick signature from you and Daniel for the contractor estimate." His voice, the same one from the recording. "Daniel's not here," I said. "That's fine, I just need yours for confirmation." He handed me a clipboard, his eyes scanning the hallway behind me. I didn't move. "I'll wait until Daniel gets back," I said. His smile tightened. "Emily said you'd say that." He leaned closer. I could smell the faint trace of cologne, something sharp and musky, the same scent that lingered on those fake documents she'd shown me. "Be smart, Margaret," he whispered. "You're not as sharp as you used to be, people talk." Then he straightened, still smiling. "We'll try again tomorrow." When he left, I locked the door, my hands trembling. I sat down at the table and tried to think. They were closing in. Emily, Mark, maybe even Daniel. I needed help, someone who'd believe me. But who? Grandkids, none. Relatives, distant. Friends, most gone or sick. Then I remembered her, Linda, my neighbor 2 houses down. She'd known me since before Daniel was born. Sharp, kind, still running her bookkeeping business from home. I called her. She came within 10 minutes. When I told her everything, she didn't interrupt once. Then she asked, "Do you have anything in writing?" I handed her the fake deed Emily had left on the counter. She studied it, brow furrowed. Wrong font, wrong date format, sloppy job. She flipped the page, "But this," she pointed at the notary stamp, "this looks real." She tapped it. "You see this seal number, belongs to Mark Reynolds." My chest tightened. "That's Daniel's friend." Linda nodded slowly. "And Emily's business partner, I did their taxes last year." I stared at her. "You're sure?" 100%. She closed the folder. "Margaret, this isn't just about your house. They're using your name to borrow money." My stomach turned. "What kind of money?" "High-interest loans, property flipping. If they default, the debt's in your name." The room swayed. Linda gripped my hand. "We can still fix this, but we need proof, something they can't destroy." That night, we planned. Linda brought her old tablet and showed me how to set up a hidden camera by the back window. "Motion triggered," she said. "It records automatically. Even if they erase your phone, this saves to the cloud." Her fingers moved fast, confident. For the first time in weeks, I felt hope flicker. "If they come back," she said, "let them talk, don't argue, just keep them in the frame." I nodded. It sounded simple. Too simple. But what choice did I have? The next day, Emily returned. Her eyes were bright, restless. She'd straightened her hair, painted her lips deep red. The color of victory. "Morning, Margaret," she said sweetly. "I brought croissants." I didn't answer. She set the bag down on the counter, the crinkle of paper loud in the silence. "So," she said, "about the house. Daniel and I think it's time to make things official." I glanced toward the window. The camera's light blinked once, recording. "What do you mean?" She smiled. "I mean you can move into assisted living, a nice place. We've already picked one, close to the lake." My throat went dry. "I'm not leaving." Her smile sharpened. "It's for your own good." She reached into her purse. "These are the forms." Her phone buzzed. She answered without leaving the room. "Yeah, she's here," she said quietly. "No, it's fine, Mark, relax, she'll sign." Then she turned back to me. "See, we're all on the same page." That voice on the other end, even muffled, I knew it. "Mark." The camera caught everything, her tone, the words, the phone call. I just had to keep her talking. "Emily," I said, forcing my voice steady, "why are you doing this?" She blinked, then laughed. "Because this is what your son wants, he just doesn't know it yet." My heart pounded. "You're lying." "Am I?" She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "He thinks you're losing your mind. I just gave him a reason to let go." The way she said it, gentle, almost pitying, made my stomach turn. Then she added, "You'll thank me someday. I'm saving everyone from you." The words hung in the air. I stared at her, at the face I used to trust. And I realized this wasn't anger or greed anymore. It was conviction. She actually believed she was right. That made her more dangerous than ever. Her phone buzzed again. She picked it up, stepping outside onto the porch. I slipped my hand beneath the counter and pressed the small remote Linda had left me. The camera light blinked again, uploading. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might give me away. Then I heard her voice through the door, softer now. Don't worry, Mark, once she signs, we'll transfer the funds. Daniel will never know, he thinks she's crazy already. I pressed my ear to the wood, every nerve on fire. Then she laughed, that same cruel, quiet laugh I'd heard on the recording. I stepped back, shaking. The evidence was real. The recording was uploading. Everything she said, every word saved. But I knew once she found out, she'd destroy me to cover her tracks. And in that moment, I made my choice. I wasn't going to wait for Daniel to believe me. I wasn't going to wait for them to take everything. I was going to fight back. But the moment I picked up the phone to call the police, the door burst open and Daniel walked in. Daniel stood in the doorway, still in his work clothes, rain dripping from his jacket. He looked from me to Emily, who was frozen mid-call, phone half raised. "What's going on here?" he asked. Emily recovered first. "Oh, thank God you're home," she said, voice trembling with fake relief. "She's confused again, she thinks I'm stealing from her." I took a step forward. "Daniel, don't listen to her, she's lying." He looked at me, then at Emily. "Lying about what?" "Everything," I said. "About the house, about Mark." Emily turned sharply. "Mark, what about him?" My heart was pounding. "I have proof, you were just on the phone with him, I heard everything." Her face went blank, then she laughed softly. "You heard me talking to Mark? Really, Margaret, do you even hear yourself?" Daniel frowned. "Mom, you're accusing Emily of something serious. Maybe we should." "Daniel," I interrupted. "She said you'd never find out. She said she'd split the money with him." Emily's eyes widened, then narrowed. "She's recording me again," she said to Daniel. "I told you she's paranoid." Daniel's gaze darted between us. "What recording?" "The one she hid in the kitchen," Emily said, pointing to the window. "She's been spying on us." My blood went cold. The hidden camera. I'd left it running. Emily moved fast, striding toward it. "Enough of this." "Don't touch that," I shouted, grabbing her wrist. The croissant bag fell, scattering crumbs across the tile. She twisted free, snatched the small black device from the sill and hurled it to the floor. It shattered. Daniel flinched. "Emily, stop." "She's insane," Emily screamed. "She's been watching us like criminals." "She is a criminal," I shouted. Then everything happened at once. Emily lunged for the folder I'd left on the table, the fake deed. I grabbed it first, clutching it to my chest. She shoved me hard. I fell backward against the counter, the edge cutting into my ribs. Daniel grabbed her arm. "What are you doing?" She shook him off, face twisted. "I'm trying to protect you. She's sick, Daniel. She's trying to take everything from us." He stepped in front of her. "Emily, enough." The folder slipped from my hands, papers spilling across the floor. Bank forms, signatures, that forged notary seal glinting in the light. Daniel bent down, frowning. "What is this?" Emily's voice softened instantly. "Just copies, sweetheart, it's all handled." He picked up one page, reading, "Mom's name is on this." She hesitated. "Because it's her property, remember, we need it." He looked up. "You notarized it yourself." Her face drained of color. "Daniel, you're not licensed to notarize legal property transfers." "Not yet," she said quickly, "but Mark." "Mark," he repeated, his voice rising. Her mouth snapped shut. The air thickened. Daniel stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "What does Mark have to do with this?" She swallowed hard. "Nothing, he just—" The doorbell rang. We all froze. Daniel walked to the window, peeked through the curtain. "It's Mark," he said quietly. Emily's hand flew to her mouth. "Why is he here?" I whispered. She didn't answer. Daniel opened the door. Mark stood there, calm as ever, rain dripping from his coat. "Hey," he said easily. "Sorry to drop by, just need a quick signature from Emily." Daniel's voice was cold. "For what?" Mark hesitated. "The transfer paperwork." "Transfer of what?" Mark's smile faltered. "The property, of course." Daniel's jaw tightened. "My mother's property." Now even Mark's eyes flicked to Emily. She looked small suddenly, pale and cornered. "Emily," Daniel said. It was supposed to be temporary," she stammered. "For the loan, to fix the roof, you said." I said nothing of the sort. Mark sighed. "Daniel, let's not make this complicated, it's just business." Business, Daniel snapped. You forged my mother's signature. Mark's calm cracked. We didn't forge anything, she signed. I didn't, I said firmly. You know I didn't. He shot me a look, something between annoyance and pity. You don't remember, do you? Emily said your memory been slipping. My skin prickled. The way he said it, smooth, rehearsed, told me he'd used that line before. Daniel took a step closer to him. You lied to me. Come on, Mark said quietly. Don't throw everything away for her. But Daniel wasn't listening anymore. He grabbed the folder off the floor, holding it up. This is evidence. Mark's expression changed. Something dark flashed across his face. Then you better hope no one sees it. Emily moved suddenly, reaching for Daniel's arm. Don't, she whispered. Please, let's just talk. He turned on her. Talk, you were selling my mother's house behind my back. She said she didn't want it anymore. I never said that, I said. You implied it, Emily snapped. You said you were tired of maintaining it, that you wanted peace. I stared at her. Peace doesn't mean giving my home away. She laughed, a harsh, desperate sound. You wouldn't understand. You've always had everything. The house, his love, his attention. I had to fight for scraps. Daniel's voice broke. You're my wife, Emily. And she's still your mother, Emily shouted. Don't you see, there's no room for both of us. Mark stepped forward, his tone sharp. Enough, give me the papers. Daniel shook his head. No. Mark reached into his jacket, not a weapon, just a phone, but the way he held it, recording, felt like a threat. Last chance, he said, hand it over. Daniel backed up, clutching the folder. You're not getting anything. Mark lunged. The room erupted. Daniel shoved him back. Mark stumbled into the table, knocking the lamp to the floor. It shattered, sparks flaring. Emily screamed. The smell of burning plastic filled the air. I grabbed the fire extinguisher from under the sink and sprayed, the hiss cutting through the chaos. When the smoke cleared, Daniel stood over Mark, breathing hard, the folder still in his hand. Mark wiped blood from his lip and glared. You don't know what you're doing, kid. Daniel pointed toward the door. Get out. Mark hesitated, then spat on the floor. You'll regret this. He turned to Emily. You coming? She didn't move. He stared at her for a long moment, then left. The door slammed behind him. The house was silent again, except for the faint buzz of the broken lamp. Emily sank into a chair, her face pale. Daniel looked at her, voice trembling. Is it true? She didn't answer. Emily. Her shoulders shook. It was supposed to be easy, she whispered. Just one sale, Mark promised we'd pay it back. Daniel's voice cracked. You used my mother's name. She's old, Daniel. She doesn't need all this space. He stared at her, speechless. Then he looked at me, and for the first time in months, I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Belief. He picked up his phone. I'm calling the police. Emily's head snapped up. No, please. You forged documents, that's fraud. Tears spilled down her face. I did it for us. No, Daniel said quietly, you did it for yourself. He turned to me. Mom, I'm sorry. My throat tightened. I know. While we waited for the police, Emily sat silent, staring at her hands. Daniel stood by the window, shoulders slumped, whispering into his phone. The sirens arrived faster than I expected. Blue lights flashed through the rain-streaked glass. When the officers entered, Emily didn't fight. She just looked up at me, her voice small. I wanted a life that felt safe, she said. I said nothing. Because safety built on lies isn't safety, it's a trap. They led her out in handcuffs. Daniel followed them to the car, talking to one of the officers. I stood alone in the doorway, the cold night air on my face. The rain smelled clean, sharp, like something washed away. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. A familiar voice said, This isn't over, Margaret. Mark. And then the line went dead. I stood frozen in the doorway, the rain falling harder now, the streetlights glowing like halos through the mist. The nightmare wasn't over. It was only changing shape. Because when the police searched Emily's phone later that night, they found something even worse. The house smelled like burnt plastic and wet wood long after the police left. Every surface felt coated in silence. Daniel sat on the couch, head in his hands. His wedding ring glinted under the flickering light. Mom, he said softly, they took her to the station. I'll go down there tomorrow. I stood by the window, watching the patrol car disappear into the fog. Don't, I said, let them handle it. He shook his head. She's still my wife. I didn't answer. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the world still looked washed out like someone had drained all the color. 2 hours later, the phone rang. A police officer, calm voice. Mrs. Dawson, there's been an incident. My chest tightened. What kind of incident? Your daughter-in-law collapsed in holding. She's being transported to St. Mary's Hospital. You and your son should come immediately. The words didn't make sense. Collapsed how? Daniel was already grabbing his coat. Let's go, he said. The hospital lobby was all white light and disinfectant. The smell hit me first, antiseptic, sharp, clean enough to sting. The nurse at the front desk spoke softly. She's stable for now but under observation, room 312. When we got there, Emily was pale against the sheets, IV in her arm. Her hair, usually perfect, was matted with sweat. A monitor beeped steadily beside her bed. Daniel's voice broke. What happened? The nurse adjusted the line. She complained of dizziness, then fainted. Her blood pressure was dangerously low. The doctor will explain. Dr. Patel walked in a few minutes later, thin, tired eyes, steady hands. She'll recover physically, he said, but there's something else we need to discuss. He opened a folder. When we ran standard labs, we found traces of sedatives, strong ones. She's been ingesting them regularly. Daniel blinked. Sedatives. Yes, prescription-level tranquilizers, but the dosage, it's far higher than therapeutic use, almost toxic. My stomach turned. You mean she's been drugging herself? He looked at me. Maybe, or someone else has been administering it. The words hung in the sterile air like smoke. Daniel stared at the floor. She doesn't even take pills. Dr. Patel nodded. That's what concerns us. If she wasn't prescribed these, we'll need to find out how she got them. He handed Daniel a copy of the toxicology summary. 3 highlighted lines. Diazepam, clonidine, zolpidem. I knew those names, my late husband's prescriptions after his surgery. The bottles had vanished months ago. My hands began to shake. Doctor, I said quietly, what if she wasn't taking them herself? He frowned. You think she was giving them to someone else? Daniel looked up sharply. I nodded. To me. For weeks, I'd felt drowsy at strange hours. Tea that made me forget conversations. Food that dulled my thoughts. And that apple pie, the one that had tasted metallic. I'd told myself it was age or grief. But what if it was? Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. You think Emily was poisoning you? The word made my stomach twist. Not to kill me, I said slowly, to make me look confused, forgetful, to make me believe it too. Dr. Patel exchanged a look with the nurse. That's a serious accusation. I met his gaze. I know. When we left the room, Daniel didn't speak. He just walked beside me down the hall, the soles of our shoes squeaking on polished linoleum. The hallway smelled like sanitizer and sadness. Halfway to the elevator, he stopped. Mom, he said softly, if this is true, she's been doing it for months. I nodded, yes. He leaned against the wall, eyes closed. I didn't see it, any of it. You trusted her, I said. That's not blindness, that's love. His jaw clenched. Love shouldn't make you stupid. When we got home, the police were waiting. Detective Harris, broad shoulders, calm voice, stood by the doorway. Evening, Mrs. Dawson, Mr. Dawson. Daniel nodded. You found something. The detective held up a plastic evidence bag. Inside was my crushed voice recorder. We recovered this near your back door. It still had fragments of audio. He pulled out a small notepad. We heard a female voice, likely Emily, saying, and I quote, he believes everything I tell him. Daniel's eyes widened. That's her. Harris nodded. We'll send it to forensics to verify, but there's more. He opened another file. When we checked her phone, we found several deleted messages. Our tech team retrieved them. He read aloud. Mark, she'll sign soon. I upped her dose. Emily, make sure it's just enough to keep her confused. Daniel's face went white. I gripped the table, so it was both of them. Harris nodded grimly. Looks that way. He handed me another document. We also found a note saved in her phone's drafts. Looks like she was preparing a medical affidavit, stating that you were unfit to manage your own assets. Daniel muttered, Gods. She planned to file it next week, Harris said. Once she got your signature, it would have been legally binding. My throat tightened. She wanted to declare me incompetent. Yes, ma'am. The detective's tone softened. You've been through a lot, but we're going to get you justice. After he left, the house felt heavier. Daniel sat at the table, the papers spread out in front of him, the forged deed, the phone transcripts, the toxicology report. He whispered, "I don't even know who I married." I sat down beside him, "Neither do I." The clock ticked loudly in the quiet. Finally, he said, "Mom, I need to see her one more time at the hospital." "Why?" He rubbed his face, "Because if I don't ask her why, I'll never sleep again." When we got there, Emily was awake. Her wrists were cuffed lightly to the bed. Two officers stood by the door. She looked up when Daniel walked in. Her eyes flickered guilt, anger, relief. "You came," she whispered. "He didn't sit. They found the messages." She swallowed hard. "I didn't mean." "You drugged my mother," he said flatly. Tears spilled down her cheeks. It wasn't supposed to hurt her, it was just to help her rest. She gets anxious. "Stop." He took a deep breath. "You lied about everything. You lied to me, to her, to yourself." Her voice broke. "I wanted a home, Daniel. I wanted to feel safe." He stared at her for a long moment. "You destroyed the only home we had." She started to sob, quiet and broken. He turned away. "Let's go, Mom." As we reached the door, she called out, "Wait." We turned. She looked straight at me. "There's something you don't know." I froze. "What?" Her lips trembled. "Mark wasn't doing this for me, he was doing it for someone else." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" She looked down. "He said he was promised half the house, not by me, by your father." My breath caught. "My father?" She nodded. "He said David had made a deal years ago, something about unpaid debt. The house wasn't supposed to be yours, Margaret." The room went silent. The beeping of the monitor filled the air. I whispered, "That's not possible. David paid everything off before he died." Emily shook her head weakly. "Check the old file cabinet, bottom drawer, there's a folder labeled Reeves property loan. Mark said he kept copies, said your husband owed his uncle." Daniel looked at me confused. "Reeves." I swallowed hard. "Your father's business partner." The name hit me like a cold wind. If she was telling the truth, then this wasn't just about Emily and Mark's greed. It started long before either of them came into my life. We left without another word. Back home, I went straight to the file cabinet in the study. The air was stale, the metal drawer stiff with age. Inside were old tax records, insurance papers, and at the very back, a thin brown folder. Reeves property loan. My hands shook as I opened it. There it was. A signed promissory note. 30 years old. Borrower David Dawson. Lender Arthur Reeves. Collateral Dawson residence. The loan had been marked paid, but the signature under confirmed by lender was missing. And stapled to the back, a copy of a notarized letter. Upon death of borrower, outstanding equity to be negotiated with surviving partner's family. At the bottom, faint but legible, Mark Reynolds, executor of estate. The paper slipped from my hands. Daniel stared at it. "Mom, what does that mean?" "It means Mark wasn't lying," I whispered. "He actually had a claim." "But Dad never told you." "No." The room tilted. "He must have hidden it or forgotten, or." I sank into a chair. Maybe he thought it didn't matter anymore. Daniel exhaled shakily. "So this whole thing, Emily, the forgeries, the poison, all started with Dad's debt." "Yes." My voice cracked, "and now it's come back to destroy us." The hospital lights had felt harsh, but this truth was worse, colder, quieter, older. It meant Emily wasn't just greedy. She was bait. Mark had been pulling the strings all along. And now, even with her in custody, he still had a legal foothold. I picked up the document again, my fingers trembling. The signature line at the bottom caught my eye. Executor of estate Mark Reynolds. And under it, smaller, almost invisible. Witness David Dawson. The room seemed to close in. My husband had signed beside him. I'd known. He'd trusted the wrong man too. And as I stared at that faded ink, I realized the fight wasn't over, it had just begun. The folder sat on the table between us, thin as paper but heavy as a tombstone. Neither of us spoke. Only the old wall clock filled the silence with its slow, accusing tick. Daniel finally whispered, "So Dad knew." I nodded slowly. "He must have, that's his signature." Daniel rubbed his temples. "He always said the house was ours, that it was paid off before I was born." Maybe he thought the agreement died with Arthur Reeves. He looked up sharply, but it didn't, it lived on through Mark. I nodded again, throat tight. We'd been fighting ghosts, but the ghost had a lawyer. Rain pressed against the windows, soft but relentless. I could smell the damp wood and dust from the old study. Daniel stared at the document like it might change if he just glared hard enough. What happens now? He asked. I don't know. He has a legal claim. Maybe, I said, but not a moral one. Daniel laughed without humor. Morality doesn't count in property law. He stood abruptly, packing. If we take this to court, his lawyer will drag Dad's name through the mud. Everyone will know about the debt. I don't care. Well, I do, his voice cracked. He's gone, Mom, he can't defend himself. And we can't let a criminal profit from his mistake. He turned to me, eyes fierce. Then we expose him. That night, I called Detective Harris again. He picked up on the second ring. Mrs. Dawson. There's more, I said. We found a document connecting Mark Reynolds to my husband's estate. He sighed. You're telling me your late husband signed something with Mark's uncle? Yes, and Mark used that to justify his involvement in the forged sale. Can you send it to me? I scanned and emailed it. 5 minutes later, the phone buzzed again. Harris sounded sharper this time. You may want to sit down, ma'am. We looked into that estate last month. Arthur Reeves died 25 years ago. I know. The executor listed in his will, Mark Reynolds, was 12 at the time. My heart stopped at 12. Yes, ma'am, he paused. So whoever signed your husband's paperwork under that name wasn't a legal executor. Daniel and I exchanged a stunned look. Harris continued, that's forgery on a whole new level. We'll verify with court archives, but I think Mark been running a long con. We spent the night pulling out every file, every document we could find. Tax receipts, mortgage letters, old insurance forms. Daniel flipped through one yellowed envelope. Look at this, he said. It was an old photograph, my husband and a younger man shaking hands in front of the house. Arthur Reeves. Behind them, a boy about 10, standing with his hands in his pockets. Mark. Even then, his eyes looked calculating. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. He's been planning this his whole life, I murmured. The next morning, Harris came in person. He wore the same weary smile as before, but this time he had a folder under his arm. Good news and bad news, he said. Start with the bad, I said. Mark disappeared. Daniel's head snapped up. What do you mean disappeared? He didn't show up at his office. His phone's off, his car's missing. I exhaled shakily, and the good news. The court verified the document. The executor's signature is fraudulent. If we find him, he's looking at multiple felony charges. Daniel's jaw tightened, then find him. Harris nodded. We're trying, but he's smart. He's been laundering money through shell companies for years. After he left, Daniel sat down heavily. I can't believe Dad trusted that man. Your father trusted easily, I said. He saw the best in people. Daniel gave a bitter laugh, and now we're paying the price. I looked at him, really looked, the shadows under his eyes, the gray already threading his hair. You're not your father, I said gently. You see clearly now. He nodded, maybe too late. That afternoon, we got a call from the hospital. Emily wanted to see us. Daniel hesitated. Do we go? I nodded. We need answers. When we arrived, she looked weaker, thinner, her wrists bruised from the restraints. Her voice was barely a whisper. They told me you found the folder. Daniel crossed his arms. We did. I wasn't lying, she said. Mark said your father promised it to him. That's why I believed him. I frowned. You believed him enough to poison me. Tears slipped down her cheeks. He said it was harmless, just to make you tired. I didn't want you to get hurt. I leaned closer. You stole my home. Her eyes flicked toward Daniel. He said you wouldn't remember. He said you had early dementia. Daniel's hands clenched. He used you. She nodded, and I let him. We left without another word. Outside the hospital, the air was cold, almost metallic. I could smell the exhaust from the ambulances, the faint sting of disinfectant still clinging to my clothes. Daniel lit a cigarette, something I hadn't seen him do since college. What now? He asked quietly. We find Mark, I said, and we finish this. He nodded, and if it means dragging Dad's name through the dirt. I looked out at the parking lot, the sun sinking behind the building. Then we drag it, I said, because truth is cleaner than silence. 2 days later, Harris called again. They'd found Mark's car abandoned near the river. Inside, a duffel bag, a phone, and several fake IDs. One of them bore my husband's last name. David M. Dawson, executor. Daniel's voice shook when he read it. He was pretending to be Dad. Harris nodded grimly. He used this to access old accounts. There's evidence he's been siphoning funds tied to your father's business for years. I gripped the back of a chair to steady myself. How much? Hard to say, hundreds of thousands, maybe more. He's been laundering money through property deals, including yours. Daniel exhaled slowly, so Emily was just another pawn. Harris nodded. She'll testify against him, it'll help her case. Let her, I said quietly, let her tell the truth for once. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. I found him sitting on the porch, the old keychain from his father's set in his hand. You kept these, I asked. He nodded. Always. The metal gleamed faintly in the porch light. I sat beside him, the wood creaked beneath our weight. You know, he said, voice rough, I used to think this house was cursed. Every fight, every loss, it always happened here. It's not the house, I said, it's the people who tried to own it. He looked at me. What about us? We're still standing, I said, that's enough. He nodded. I'll call the lawyer tomorrow, we'll put everything in writing. The next morning, there was a letter on the doorstep. No postage, no name, just a white envelope sealed with tape. Inside, one photograph. Mark standing outside a storage unit. And a note scrawled in thick black marker. You'll never find the rest. Daniel's jaw tightened. He's taunting us. I stared at the photo, the number on the storage unit door, 27B. Where is this? I asked. He pointed. That's near the old industrial park. We drove there within the hour. The unit smelled like oil and rust. Dust floated in the thin light from the cracked ceiling vent. Daniel pried the padlock open with a crowbar. Inside were boxes, dozens of them. Old ledgers, bank statements, property deeds. Each labeled with my husband's name. At the bottom of one stack, I found a sealed envelope marked for Margaret. My hands shook as I tore it open. It was a letter. If you're reading this, I'm sorry. I made mistakes trying to protect you and Daniel. I trusted the wrong man. I thought I could buy us safety, but safety built on secrets doesn't last. Mark came to me after Arthur died. He said he could clear the debt quietly. I signed the papers. I shouldn't have. If he ever comes back, don't trust him. Keep the house. It's yours. It always was. Oh, David. The words blurred through my tears. Daniel took the letter gently, reading it twice, 3 times. He knew, he whispered. He tried to warn you. I nodded, but too late. Daniel looked at me. We can use this. It proves Mark's fraud. Yes, I said softly, but it also proves Dad's guilt. He frowned, so I looked down at the paper, at my husband's final confession. If we give this to Harris, it'll clear our names, but Dad's will be dragged through court records forever. Daniel exhaled, and if we do, Mark walks free. The choice hung in the air like smoke. Protect the man who raised us, or destroy his memory to save ourselves. I thought of Emily's words. He said he was promised half the house. Maybe in some twisted way, she'd believed it. Daniel's hand closed around mine. Mom, he said, we can't protect the dead by sacrificing the living. I nodded slowly, then we tell the truth. That afternoon, we handed the letter to Detective Harris. He read it quietly, then nodded. This is enough, we'll issue a federal warrant. I felt a strange mix of relief and grief flood my chest. When we left the station, Daniel asked, do you think Dad would forgive us? I looked at the sky, gray, heavy with rain again. Maybe, I said, maybe he already has. That night, I went to bed with the old keys beside me. The metal was cool against my skin, the faint jingle comforting. For the first time in months, I slept without fear. But somewhere far away, a phone buzzed on a motel nightstand. A man's voice whispered, they turned it in. And another voice, calm, younger, answered, then it's time to finish it. Because Mark wasn't done running, and he wasn't alone anymore. They found Mark 2 weeks later. A gas station clerk in a small town recognized his face from the news and called it in. When police arrived, he didn't resist. He just smiled and said, took you long enough. That smile haunted me for days. The trial was quiet at first, then messy. Reporters dug into everything: my husband's old business, the forged deeds, even the sedatives Emily used. They wrote headlines like "Widow Duped in Family Property Scheme." Each article felt like a wound reopening. Daniel sat through every hearing, his hands clasped tight, jaw set. I couldn't always go. The courtroom smell of stale paper and cold coffee made me nauseous. But when the verdict came, I was there. Guilty on all counts. Mark showed no emotion, just that same faint smirk. The kind that says, "You win this round." He got 15 years. Emily got 2, with probation for cooperation. It was justice, but it didn't feel like victory. Afterward, Daniel and I stood outside the courthouse steps. The sky was overcast, heavy with spring rain. People rushed past us, umbrellas opening like flowers. He handed me a folded paper. "The lawyer says the house is officially ours again, all debts cleared." I nodded, but I couldn't smile. "You should feel happy," he said softly. "I do," I said, "just tired." He looked at me. "You've been tired for a long time." I didn't deny it. In the months that followed, the house felt different. Lighter, quieter. I repainted the kitchen, threw away the broken lamp, opened every window and let the air move freely again. The smell of dust and bleach faded, replaced by lavender and sunlight. But some nights I'd still wake to the echo of her voice, Emily's, saying, "Give me the keys." The past doesn't vanish, it just changes shape. Daniel started therapy. He said it helped him untangle guilt from grief. He asked if I wanted to join him. "I've lived too long with ghosts," I told him. "I need silence first." He nodded, "Then start there." So I did. Every morning I walked through the garden, the same one David planted decades ago. The soil was dark and wet, the roses overgrown. I trimmed them slowly, one branch at a time, breathing in their sweetness. Hands dirty, heart steady. That was my therapy. One afternoon, a letter arrived. From Emily. The handwriting was shaky but familiar. "I know sorry doesn't change anything. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know I see it now, how he used me. I wanted control because I never had any, but I lost myself trying to steal yours. I'm working at the shelter now. I tell women not to confuse control with safety. Please tell Daniel I'm glad he didn't become like me. Emily." I read it twice, then folded it gently and put it in the drawer beside David's letter. Not forgiveness, but closure. Daniel eventually sold his share of the guest house. He said he needed distance, a place where his own family could start fresh. When he left, the driveway felt too long. The air too still. But every Sunday, he still called. And every few months, he visited, bringing groceries and laughter that filled the rooms again. He always asked before unlocking the door, a small act of respect that meant everything. One evening, about a year after the trial, I got a call from Detective Harris. "Just thought you should know," he said. "Mark been transferred to a federal facility. They found new evidence of other victims." I closed my eyes, so we weren't the only ones. "No, ma'am," he said, "but you were the first to speak up." I hung up the phone and stood at the window, watching the sun dip below the trees. The light hit the photo of David on the mantel, that same calm smile. For the first time in years, it didn't hurt to look at him. That night, I wrote something in my journal. Not for anyone else, just for me. Truth isn't gentle, it breaks before it heals, but lies rot quietly, eating everything you love until there's nothing left. I slept well after that. Months passed. The seasons shifted again, winter into spring, spring into light. I decided to turn the guest house into something new. Not a rental, not a memory. A place for women who'd lost their homes through deceit, like I almost did. A safe place to start over. Linda, my neighbor, helped me set up the paperwork. She even smiled when we hung the small wooden sign by the gate. Haven House. The first woman who came had bruises under her makeup and no suitcase. She cried when I handed her a spare key. "You're safe here," I said. Her hands shook. "Why are you helping me?" I smiled. "Because someone once tried to take my home, I want to give it back to others." Later that night, I stood on the porch, the cool wind brushing against my cheek where Emily's slap once landed. I could still feel the echo sometimes, not pain anymore, just memory. A reminder of what I survived. The moonlight caught the old keychain in my hand, the metal worn smooth from years of turning locks. David's keys. My anchor. Daniel came by that weekend. He walked through the garden, whistling softly like he used to as a boy. Place looks good, he said. So do you, I said. He smiled, therapy helps. He looked toward the guest house. You really think this place will make a difference? I nodded, it already has. He slipped an arm around my shoulder. Dad would be proud. I looked out over the yard, the evening light soft and gold. Maybe he'd finally be at peace. As the sun went down, I felt the world settle, not quiet but calm. No secrets left to bury. No lies left to hide behind. Just truth standing steady in the fading light. I still keep the letters, David's, Emily's. They sit together in the same drawer, two confessions written from opposite sides of guilt. Sometimes I take them out, not to read but to remember. Because forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's choosing not to reopen the wound. So that's the story. How I nearly lost everything, my home, my son, my sanity. How a single slap turned into a storm that stripped everything false from my life. And how, when the storm passed, I found something better than safety. I found peace. Now I sit here, tea in hand, morning light spilling across the kitchen. The same kitchen where she once demanded my keys. They still hang on the hook. But now they only open doors I choose. What would you have done in my place? Would you have protected your family's secret or exposed it to save yourself? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Because sometimes the truth doesn't just set you free. It gives you back your home.